It's more than just steel and gears. It pulls you in and doesn't let go.
Okay, what's up? What's up? Still got kind of an abrupt ending there to that, but working on it. What's going on, man? Good to see you, Marcellino.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me, man.
Do you prefer Marcellino or Marcellino?
Yeah, Marcellino,
March. It's with a ch.
the Italian pronunciation.
Nice, very nice. I'm reading or I'm listening to RFK Jr.'s book about Fauci, your fellow Paisan. And
Yeah.
I'm like, man, we got to let's stop hating the Jews and start hating the Italians because, man, he sucks. He's
You
really
have
bad.
interesting relationship with reality, I guess. There's that, just everybody is a criminal to some extent in Italy. Laws are guidelines.
Right. Yeah. No, my dad actually lives in a city called Bari. And I'm not Italian, but he lives in Italy, and it's like totally run by the mafia. I think it's like it's not even everybody just knows like that's the deal. Like you don't even talk about it.
Yeah. Well, everything is run by the mafia everywhere, really.
True. That's right.
Mafias are the only way to run things, apparently.
That's correct. So you're right. It's who actually knows. All right. Well, I wanted to have you on. This is our first time ever streaming on LinkedIn. So catch us on LinkedIn, everybody. And it's good because we're kind of in the same industry. We're both branding. Marcellino is a branding guy as well. And I wanted to have you on to talk about this piece that you wrote about Angel Studios, which I thought was one of the better Substack pieces I've read in a long time because it was really a comprehensive and simple look at something that had happened that very few people were talking about. And you titled it "How to Kill a Brand, Angel Studios." And so, why don't you just give us an intro to what is Angel Studios? Why did you write this piece? And how is it killing a brand?
Yeah, all right. So Angel Studios, for those of you who've not been paying attention to media for the last few years, is the studio that's run by some LDS business bros out of Utah that helped to launch The Chosen, which is the biggest crowdfunded media project of all time. That has been a massive show for the Christian audience. They've loved it. And there have been a number of things that have happened after that basically Angel Studios was really trying to leverage The Chosen to become kind of like the Netflix of the Christian media world. So they have an app that they have a number, probably 700,000 people on who are quote unquote guild members who pay like $20 a month to help vet what projects they're going to invest in and bring to theatrical release. I have some experience with this because my twin brother has a film coming out in the fall that they had some dialogue with Angel Studios, and apparently I burned the ships prematurely on that. So maybe should have waited to like put this this Substack.
Yeah, you
But I've
ruined his
never
deal.
been
Great
one to
job.
hold my tongue. So
Wait, but so this is something I'm actually really confused about, and they have terrible Angel Studios. Say what you want, they have really bad brand architecture in the sense that I can't tell what anything is or where to see it. They have this new thing that's this post-apocalyptic movie, right?
yeah,
Called the something.
Homestead.
Homestead, but then there's
Yeah,
also a show of Homestead. So you can't
right.
tell, am I watching the right Homestead? Now you're talking about there's this thing that's The Chosen, but the Chosen is a platform and it's a show?
So this is part of the thing that I wrote about, which is that The Chosen basically got a divorce with Angel Studios. So
Right.
they're no longer
Yes. Yes.
affiliated. And they have their own app now, and it's its own whole thing. So I wasn't really like going into that. Yeah.
Wait. But what is The Chosen?
Okay, so yeah, The Chosen is a show. It's
It's a show.
just a series that's like about kind of Jesus's life and the Bible stories of the New Testament, how those came about, what must have been going on in the interpersonal lives of the disciples. Um, so it has a strong like biblical element, but is reimagining it, retelling it in a way that's much more like creative.
But then it has direct subscribers? Is that the deal?
Yeah. So you
I
can
see.
subscribe to The Chosen.
I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, right. So the Chosen is both like a platform and a show,
Yeah.
kind of.
Right.
Because you can subscribe directly to, and they have 700,000 direct subscribers. And it's been like extremely successful.
Yeah. So The Chosen has been, and I think this like kind of goes to the media industry in general, just is in deep need of disruption. As an indie creator, it's just really hard to make any money in film. And so like basically like Angel and The Chosen have both been trying to pave a new pathway for distribution for this kind of film that they're doing. Kind of low budget, test it out, crowdfund it, figure out a way to like get people to your app so that you get the data. Because if you sell it through Prime, you don't get the data, etc. So
Yeah. Yep. Totally.
So I guess just to finish up like that thought of like why did I write this? What was I trying to say about it? So Angel in the last few years since The Chosen's success, they've launched or they've done several theatrical releases of different films that they've helped to fund and get out there and produce. One is the film that you were just talking about, Homestead. Cabrini, Bonhoeffer, and now they just put out a new trailer that just pissed me off so much and made me want to write this, which is
Which is Rule Breakers.
yeah, Rule Breaker.
Rule Breakers. And it's about women breaking barriers. Guess what? And well, but of course, we're forgetting the only movie of theirs that I've ever seen, which is Sound of Freedom, which I am a huge advocate for. I know many people disagree with me, but I think they're all wrong. But anyway, we'll get to that. So, okay, so walk us through this. Walk us through what's happening here, because you lay it out all very well in this piece.
Yeah. All right. So Angel Studios gets a bunch of money from The Chosen. They invest in Sound of Freedom. Sound of Freedom is this like runaway, slam dunk, massive success, but also garners a tremendous amount of pushback from the mainstream media, which apparently made a lot of people at Angel feel very uncomfortable. We don't really know. I'm just assuming just from kind of like what's happened since. So they made a ton of money with that one film. And then every film that's happened that they've put out since then has been basically like kind of girl bossy, anti-racism. Like they're just really thin. Like there's no real substance to them. Bonhoeffer is this. I mean, every person that they're featuring is this like kind of wildly strange figure at a wild time in history, like Cabrini and Bonhoeffer, and they just totally like made it this thin. Yeah, like immigration, man. We got to like take in the immigrants, and so a lot of people have been discussing this in like kind of subtle ways, like, oh yeah, Angel, finally we have somebody in our court, and now it's just like, God damn it.
I know.
Like,
It's amazing, isn't it?
but
Because we were all so excited. We were like, oh, we got one. And then it's
Yeah.
like every movie they've come out with is like the proud woman who taught all the little girls in Guatemala how to,
Yeah.
abandon their traditions and
But what's
become girl
crazy about it
bosses.
is like they've lost a crap ton of money. Like
Yeah.
these films have all failed
Right.
dramatically. since-
Besides Sound of Freedom.
Yeah, and I don't know all of the details. I took some guesses in my piece, but I'm guessing overall around like 71 million in losses,
Wow.
which is not an insubstantial amount of money to just like burn over the course of a few years. And I know that they're really good at like pushing risk off to their to the producers. So the production companies that did each of these movies is probably the one who's like left holding the bag. But I'm just trying to say, guys, we can do better. We should do better. And like somebody's got to talk about this. Somebody's got to
Yeah.
like push back on this.
Which no one else is, which is so surprising. And it's really, it's such an important story, and such a story that's like, hello, like, why are you not paying attention to this? Because look at what's happening. So what is happening here? What is your take of why this is happening?
Well, I had a conversation with a woman who worked on Cabrini. I've done a number of like interviews with different people who've worked with Angel, and one of the through lines that there are a couple of through lines. One of them is that's been just a consistent refrain is, we want this to be accessible to a wide audience. That's the line over and over again. That's what they kept saying. Like, that's why we need to make sure that Cabrini is this like kind of powerful girl boss figure, even though she's an 18th century woman, like, so yeah, we can't play the card too much, or else like the progressives will like probably get mad at us. And what's just so funny about that is like, if you just Google search Cabrini, you see like one article from a Catholic news source that's like, wow, this was, a beautifully shot film that lacked a Catholic heart. And then the next search result right under it is like some progressive, like saying, wow, what a shitty nun movie. It's just like, what are you trying to do here?
So how does this happen? I mean, you're in branding like me. I don't know how much you've experienced kind of the mainstream of marketing, but why does this happen? Like, what do you think is actually literally happening here? Like, why? Because you would think, oh, we made a based movie that did really well among right-wing audiences. Why don't they understand that they should just keep doing that instead of making left-wing movies? Do they not think of this as left-wing? Is that why? Or like, why does this happen?
Yeah, I think that the Christian environment is part of this, that like there's a factor there that I think is important. I think that a lot of Christian organizations just don't know what time it is, really, and aren't willing to accept the reality that there is no way that progressives are going to ever like be on their team. It's just, like, I think I was like this too before 2020 to a certain extent. I was always trying to be a bridge builder. Like, I saw myself as sort of not really a Republican, I was a libertarian, like I tried to not be on either team because it just was easier to do that in my relationships. I felt more accepted when I said I was a libertarian and like that I hated Trump. But like, I think that that's a part of what's happening here. Angel is trying to, they see themselves as a faith-based film company, and their audience that they think that they're reaching are like the evangelical crowd, which they just don't want to take any negative press on. They want to like be really safe, and that's what's like screwed up faith-based films forever, is that it's not production value that's the problem. It's like storytelling. It's being gritty about what it's saying something that matters, you know. So I think that's a part of it. Angel has like part of the thing there too is they have this guild feature, right? That like people are voting on what films should get made, which in my mind is like anybody that's ever worked in the creative world knows the last thing that you want is 700,000 people telling you like what should happen and what shouldn't happen. You know, like great art is almost universally, I mean, you're really big on this. Like it comes from crazy people who like have lots of mental issues and say something very uncomfortable for the culture at the moment. And, you know, like that's the artist. So you're not going to get like that. Basically putting 700,000 people in an app and asking them, what do you guys want, is a great way to make shitty things. You're going to get a ton of probably boomers who all have very like narrow-minded views of what art is and can't handle a cuss word, saying like, we want the same girl boss feminism that we've had forever. Don't make me feel uncomfortable. You know, that's what I think is going on.
And it's also like, if the people are voting, like, how do we even know it's not bots or something? I mean, is it like, were these movies, Bonhoeffer and Girl Boss, were they all voted upon?
Yes, they're all voted upon.
And they beat out the like, you know, like what did they beat out? Like did they beat out like much more base? Was it like, you know, the story of the, you know, the like some amazing tale of defeating the Muslims in Hungary versus Cabrini? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, I guess like who is going to get on an app and participate in a voting process like that? Like, who do you think?
Yeah, I guess, who knows? I don't know. It just seems so susceptible to abuse also. It's like, is that, because I guess it's like they're giving the members the voting rights. Yeah. But also, was this on the platform, The Chosen, that they lost?
So before The Chosen moved on, The Chosen was on Angel's platform.
Okay, got it. So they have their own streaming proprietary thing. And they were like, vote on this.
Yeah.
Netflix should do that.
Well, I just think, you know, there might be value to getting opinions about art, but I just think that it's very clearly not working for them. Like, if you just look at the numbers, these people aren't going and telling all their friends. They're not going to see it in the theater. They're probably seeing a log line and watching a trailer and just being like, this is amazing. I want my daughter to watch this, you know, and then nothing happens.
It's really incredible that, you know, I've experienced this myself inside right-wing organizations. It's incredible that there's this like brazen total blindness to the argument of, well, what about the girls? You know, well, what about, you know, what do you mean we can't have a right-wing girl boss feminist story?
Yeah.
And it's crazy that they don't see it. It's like they can't see it. And they just think, oh, well, why not? You know, like, and I mean, so being inside the Christian world yourself, have you ever like had arguments with people about this?
Oh, yeah.
And so like, what's it like? How does those arguments go?
I mean, it's actually how like you would expect. I'm like, hey, why don't we do this super base thing that I think is going to work? And then they're like, but we got to like make sure that everybody feels accepted. And it's like, all right, this is going to suck. I mean, that's the conversation. It happens over and over again. But I think that like there are people. I mean, a lot of the clients that we work with now are much more willing to take these kinds of approaches. It's just that they stand to lose a lot. Like, for instance, with this community that I was helping out with, that was a community of Catholic entrepreneurs. We put on an event for these business owners who were kind of universally like frustrated with all of the like DEI stuff and didn't really know how to handle it. And so we put on this kind of like digital event for them. But they didn't want to like any of the posts. They didn't want to like share about it. They didn't. There's just a lot of fear in this environment that they're going to lose relationships. They're going to lose donors. And actually, after we did that, one of the primary donors in this community said to the founder, like, I think I might need to reconsider my engagement with you. And
Wow.
so there is a valid fear of what's going to happen that I think people just are sensing in some way, But if we're going to really survive, I mean, I'd say this to Catholics, Christians in general, like you're going to have to burn the ships eventually. There's no way that you escape that problem over time. It's going to happen. And I think you should have people on your team that are actually going to stand through it with you and really like campaign on your values as opposed to trying to force you to play with the kid gloves. So, yeah.
So what did you think of Sound of Freedom?
I thought it was awesome. Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. I felt like the pacing and the way that the way it was shot was like a lot more artistic than I think the conservative audience is generally expecting. It was on a subject matter that was really heavy. So like, I think that it shows that conservatives can handle more than just like, oh, the coach and the softball team that like was bad, but now he like got them to all play together. Now that kind of
the Christian typical Christian movie thing, right? Yeah. I saw the Kurt Warner movie. And I was really excited because I'm a Rams fan, and I was like, "Oh, Kurt Warner Christian movie," and this was like, right after. I think it was like right after Trump had lost, so I was really excited. I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna just indulge in this Christian Rams movie about Kurt Warner," and it was so bad, and I was just like, "Oh, this is horrible." Yeah. But I was. And you're right. Like, it had nothing to do with football. Like, it was all about the stupid relationship between him and Anna Paquin, and it was just like, ugh. And it was just so not deep at all. There was just nothing good about it. But then I saw Sound of Freedom. I saw two movies right in a row. I saw Sound of Freedom and Nefarious.
Yeah.
And I thought both Sound of Freedom and Nefarious were so good. So good. And I think that they were good for two reasons. One is because they, very simply, they were just about subject matters that you're not allowed to touch.
Right.
So Nefarious is a horror movie about abortion, basically, and, ish, and like the devil, but very much a right-wing perspective. And it's like a really A-grade TV movie is what I would describe. It's like you flip to it and you're like, this is great. Like, this writing is really good. And you're just like very pleasantly surprised. And then Sound of Freedom, I was like blown away by Sound of Freedom. There's like some cringy parts at the beginning and at the end where they're singing the song, and it's like, it was like, whoa. But honestly, man, I found that was a strength because it showed that there was a singularity of vision in it. It showed that this was made by people who were not being controlled by 700,000 people telling them, I don't like that. I don't like that. Or it very much didn't have a made by committee feel to it. It really felt artful, well acted. And it's about this subject matter that is horrifying. and real, and then no one talks about. And so it's like, I was really into it. I was so into Sound of Freedom, and it was so hopeful to me.
Yeah. I loved Nefarious too. I thought that the Glenn Beck part was just like, why
Why is Glenn Beck?
Like, what a weird way to end this movie. Like, you could have just given him a cameo, you know? Like,
yeah. Right. Yeah.
So what?
So, yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I'd love to hear from. I've been thinking about something that you said a few weeks ago. One of your tweets was like, people just need to really understand that you don't just like go out to make right-wing media. You go out to make great media, and that's always, or like great art, and that's always going to end up being right-wing. I wonder if you could like unpack that a little bit as it relates to like why some of these, like why conservatives have just like sucked it up over the past couple decades in art.
Well, the thing is, conservatives, it's conservative art, and I've thought a lot about this. As far as I see it, conservative art is just a replica of the worst parts of left-wing art.
Yeah.
So it's like we all hate left-wing art, and then conservatives are so beat down that they think, well, I hate left-wing art. Let me make right-wing art. They think that making right-wing, they think that they hate the left-wing art because of the superficial politics of it, not because it's bad. They actually hate it because it's bad. Right. And formerly, the left were the only ones who had the sort of ability and freedom to, or not the left, but just more left-leaning people, had the resources, they had the ability, and they had the freedom to create really radical, really good art.
Yeah.
But it wasn't because they were left wing. It was because, for whatever reason, at that point in time, that group had the fertile ground to create that stuff. Yeah. And they lost that fertile ground, obviously, because woke is the opposite of fertile ground. It's never going to create good art. The people in charge of it aren't going to ever allow good art to be made. And they also just don't believe in it, right? So whereas it seems like right now we have this second moment in time where the left has completely forfeited it, and so the right has the freedom to do it because the right isn't being held to all of these ridiculous, fearful principles. But what you've pointed out in this great essay is that they are being held to these ridiculous, fearful principles because there's nobody inside these organizations with the immune system to say, no, we're not going to make a
I don't care, Margaret.
Yeah, I don't care, Margaret.
Needs to come out here and start saying that shit.
Right. I don't care, Margaret. Exactly. And I've said I don't care, Margaret, in organizations many times. And it works. The thing is, it really does work. Yeah. But you get punished later. You get that they eventually find a way to scare enough people around you to say, oh, that guy, his behavior is bad, and he can't, the way he's holding us out, we're going to alienate. You should be afraid because we're going to alienate our female population. As if what thing has ever been made that is trying to not alienate the female population that has been good? Nothing. They don't think that way. It's like that's just not how good movies are made. You're not trying to let's make sure everybody is comfortable with this. That's what propaganda is. That's not a movie, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the other point there also was that what does it mean to be right-wing art? Art that says we're Christian but is about a girl boss, that's not right. That's conservative art. That's not right-wing art. A right-wing movie is something that is meritocratic, hierarchical, savage, realistic. That's a right wing movie, and I would say that basically hierarchical, not in its necessarily its like themes, but in the way that it's made.
Yeah.
It's a product of hierarchy and freedom and liberty. I think that's why, in reality, all good art is right wing art at the end of the day, or not good art, all great art is right wing art, because just inherently it's made with the values that we think of as right wing. It's not. This is like a Yarvin thing. It's never made by a equal. Oh, this is an equal democracy. Everybody has a vote. Everybody has from each their ability. Like, no, it's a very feudalistic thing.
Yeah, oftentimes it's by someone who has a willingness to just dedicate their life obsessively to something and will not allow any alternative perspectives to influence them, which I saw with my brother. I mean, he made this film about Maximilian Kolbe, who's a Catholic saint, and it's basically like, I mean, he came to me a couple years ago and said, "Hey, I want to make this film about these." Well, the story is Maximilian Kolbe is in Auschwitz, and he is in the early stages of the war with a bunch of political prisoners. Someone escapes, and the way that the Germans punished people who escaped was they would take 10 of their group, and put them in a hunger cell together. And so Kolbe traded places with a man who pleaded for his life and voluntarily entered the hunger cell. And then these guys who had been starving they'd been starving already, they last for 14 days, and ultimately the Germans have to come and kill them. And so we don't really know much about what goes on in the cell. So Anthony came to me and said, "Hey, I want to make a movie about 10 guys starving to death together. Let's not make any money for the next 2 years, and we'll make this film." I was like, "Dude, I can't do that. I'm sorry." I didn't really see it at the time because I had just gotten married. But either way, like, he dedicated everything, every waking moment to this. And you can see it, like, he does not, like, every minute detail of this film, of the way it's marketed, everything is like filtered through his artistic kind of creative mind. And that's, I think, how great art gets made. So yeah, kind of maniacal, but that's what it takes.
Yeah, it's there's got to be a singularity here. Here, this Terry is saying that I say like too much. What's this? Screw you,
I think
Terry.
I'll
Screw you,
probably
Terry.
say that too.
Yeah, here we go. He says like too much. Yeah, we got some people. Somebody said Nefarious is like the screw tape letters. I don't know. Are you a C.S. Lewis guy?
Yeah.
So what is that? How is Nefarious like the screw tape letters?
So that book, The Screw Tape Letters, is a fictional memoir or letters between two different demons who are talking to each other about how to tempt and derail this one man's life. So it's like a younger tempter writing to his uncle Screwtape and asking him, like, how do I really like screw this guy up,
Why is his name Screwtape?
Yeah.
Why is it Screwtape?
It's just because C.S. Lewis has a great way of naming characters, just like gross name, Wormtongue, Screwtape. Those are the two demons.
Love it. I love it. Okay, that's great. Wait, so then what does he say? Like, what are the methodology? I mean, obviously, I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but do you remember anything from it specifically?
It's been a long time now. I read in high school and college. I think, like, one of the big things that C.S. Lewis is always writing about is getting people to, that Satan really likes to hide, and he would rather get this guy really hooked on like just petty frustrations and just pettiness in general, rather than, like, he doesn't care so much about getting the guy to just go crazy with sexual stuff or drugs or whatever. Like, he's like, that is not really as useful, because people oftentimes hit rock bottom when they go in that direction. What you really want him to be is like just focused on how much he's frustrated with his neighbor and just irritated about like cars driving on the road wrong, and like thinking that he can be like that he needs to just present in a more status oriented way and can't say unpopular opinions and make sure that he like looks for those kinds of friends. That's basically like what the like one of the through lines of the book. I don't know if
Really?
Nefarious.
That's cool. That's cool.
I don't know if Nefarious itself, like the themes are really C.S. Lewisan, kind of, maybe a little bit, but it's more just that dialogue of like, here's what a demon is saying, like what they're trying to make happen and accomplish, and like pulling back the veil on that.
So do you believe in demons?
Yeah, totally.
So
don't you?
How do demons? Well, demons. I don't know. I don't know if I believe in demons. I mean, I saw that Tucker Carlson thing of him saying he got scratched by a demon. So which I thought, I don't know. I don't know if demons scratch you. I don't know if that happens. But I mean, I certainly believe in, God and like metaphysics, or, that's not metaphysics. That's a stupid word, but like, I certainly believe that type of thing exists. So what is a demon?
Yeah.
And how do they manifest themselves?
If you want to take the more like non-religious view of this, you could look up the term egregore, which is kind of like a similar concept. You could believe in that and not be Christian, but I think it really is a similar kind of idea, that there are these ideas and structures and systems beyond us that are far greater than we are and that can kind of possess you. So I think that actually is really what happens in addiction. Like I think addiction is a really good example of like when you start to make small decisions that lead to lying, you don't control your behavior, and before long you're totally powerless to really manage your behavior, and your life is kind of spiraling and you're like on the street begging for whatever. It's I've been involved in like recovery communities, and I think that like that's if you want to see what demons do to people, look in those rooms, look at addiction. But I absolutely believe I'll take it a step further. I think they're real. I think that art is a way that they kind of come out. I think that you see it in the aesthetics of the left. Like, what is it that these egregores or the demons are trying to do is like get them to like mutilate themselves, castrate themselves, like make themselves ugly, sort of the destruction of the beautiful and the good.
So do you believe that somebody, for example, who is struggling with addiction, because I know what you're saying in the sense that like one thought that I always have when I go down to Skid Row, and I used to live in downtown LA for a long time, so I was very intimate with Skid Row. And one of the things that always was funny to me about Skid Row is that it's not, people think chaos is randomness. But it's not random. It's not like you go down to Skid Row and people are acting random. It's not like somebody's like set up a funnel cake shop. It's not like, you don't go down there and like, it's just people are using their time to do any, weird thing. There's a pattern to it. Like, that you're going to see if you look over here, you just know you're going to see the same set of like 5 horrific, terrible things that you don't want to see. And so in that sense, there's a consistency to chaos that does feel like, connected into something a lot greater than ourselves. But I guess my question for you would be, do you believe genuinely that there is like specific negative entities that just show up and like attach themselves? Like, how does it work? How does a demon work?
How does a demon work? Well, man, I'm not a theologian, so I
No,
might
just
have
in
to
your
keep that
opinion.
one
It
going.
doesn't. It doesn't. You don't have to. Just like in your mind, it doesn't have to be the real way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that let me try and make this personal for me. In 2020, when all of this kind of crazy shit was happening in the world, and I was kind of getting a lobotomy, I started checking Twitter constantly. I started like reading Revolver, and like I was my business was tanking. My wife and my brother had a falling out. Like all of these things happened in this like tremendously tight time frame. I had my son, and then I had like my health started to fall apart. Like I couldn't sleep. I was struggling with insomnia, and like all of these things happening at the same time got me into this state that was like just absolutely crazy. Like I was borderline suicidal, and people did not want to be around me. My wife was like losing her mind just how crazy I was. I was like panic attacking. And I really think that just the chances of all of these tiny things happening all in the same time period to kind of like build up my mental craziness to this certain level, like I think that was intentional. I think that there was specific uh, spiritual attack on my life at that time, and that I've had to recover from and find healing from. But I don't think that it was just psychological. I guess I would just say I don't think that psychology is enough to explain a lot of the things that we see in the world. So, yeah.
Definitely. No, I mean, I definitely agree. I certainly agree. So, do you think that it's like actually? Why does a demon get attached to somebody? Like, why have you thought about that at all?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think that demons are going to be a lot more focused on people who are in positions of authority and can affect other people's lives, and they're going to be less interested in focused on people who have like already been kind of demolished. So at times when like I've noticed this, that there are times in my life where I'm going to have like a really fruitful, profound kind of my art is going to be great. I'm going to grow my business or whatever. Like something new is going to happen. This happened to me just a few months ago where we found out that we were pregnant in August, and right
Congrats.
after that, like 5 things happened. My wife's car broke down. My car broke down. Like
Yeah.
it was crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the deal. Like destroying what is good, what is like powerful, and what's like moving the world in the right direction is like what they're after. So whatever that's happening, intentionality.
Interesting. It's funny we're talking about angel studios and demons, angels.
Yeah.
What about angels? Are angels also real?
I think so. Yeah. To make that one personal too. I don't know, like how all of this stuff works. I guess like I would say my personal experience is more like is maybe less nuanced and less specific, more just kind of like I've experienced a lot of negative and I've experienced a lot of just like wild positive. Okay. For instance, um, during that time when my family was going through this, like, uh, I don't know, just we found out we were pregnant. We were really struggling with a lot of stress. I parked my car at the top of a hill where we live, and it's a stick. Just like ridiculously, I was stressed. I hadn't slept. I didn't put the parking brake on. It's a slow grade, and so I left, and the car started rolling down the hill. There were like 5 different things that this could have hit that would have like sent my year in a completely different direction. And it missed every single one of them. Like a massive building, a tractor, like a dude's Tesla, and it just like bumped the curb right into this tiny, I don't know, this like tiny slice of the neighborhood where it could just hit a tree and it didn't even really hurt the tree. So like that, I think, is the kind of experience that I've had of like divine protection, shall we say. So negative, like spiritual attack, divine protection.
Something that I've noticed is that like there's a relationship between sin and like bad things going on. It's like once you say this stuff, it sounds so dumb. But like for example, like, you know, I have kids, and you know, becoming a father is, it's not easy for me, man. You know, I'm a bohemian, gonzo writer, drunk. You know, it's not, being a dad is, I love it, and I love my daughters very much, but it's not like super. You know, I think some guys really feel very comfortable. You know, they like it. I like being a father. I mean, like the sort of caring diaper changing elements come very easy to them.
Yeah.
Those parts are very hard for me. So when I think it was, my wife was like 8 months pregnant or something, or maybe we had just had our other daughter, and I went to, or one of our daughters, and I went to this rave in downtown LA. And it was like it was kind of like a last hurrah type thing, or just like, you know, and I did a bunch of ketamine, and I went into a K-hole, which sucks. I don't know if you've ever been in a K-hole before, but it's really unpleasant. And I come out of the K-hole, and I'm like downtown. I should not be there. Like, it's like, I'm like, this is like the last thing I should be doing. I should be, you know, helping the family. And, I come out, and my car, I had a great Alfa Romeo, and the whole side had been ripped off by like a homeless guy trying to rob me, but he must have used, like, he went at it with like a pole or something. So my car was completely destroyed. I had just come out of this K-hole, and I came out and I was like, this is terrible. Like, I gotta stop. Like, this is obviously, I don't know if it's a demon or if it's God saying like, dude, this is just a slippery slope, man. It's like, you got to stop doing this. And I've noticed that those things come in pairs all the time. When you slip up into sin or into, you know, just doing shit, you know, you shouldn't be doing, it like compounds. Like you will be like, it's the same. I notice that with my phone. When I'm distracted on my phone and I'm not paying attention to my kids, bad stuff happens because it's not because I'm distracted. It's because those things like go together, you know?
Right.
So I don't know if that's a demon though. It's definitely how things are, but I don't know if it's like a specific demon. But yeah, that's a pattern that I've noticed for sure, that like those things kind of like come together, and you're like supposed to be doing, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. John Cook asks, who is DJ?
Who's the DJ? I should go back and look, but I don't remember. It was not good. It was not a good. It was like Halloween or something. But yeah, that was like saying like, yo, you should not be in downtown LA. You know, doing ketamine.
Right.
So yeah, it's like drugs, like, right? Like drugs are like that. It's like you get into drugs. It's never, I mean, unless you really find a way to do it in moderation, it's always bad.
Yeah.
A friend of mine used to say that becoming homeless is just going to a party one day and never going home.
Right.
You know, it's like that's like how you become homeless. You just start partying and you just never like go back, and you got to have that voice. All right. Well, let's get back to the creation of art here, in the good sense. So, you know, these nice Christians that are making this stuff, how do you convince them that they have to allow some megalomaniacal guy to come in and be like, no? Because you got to be kind of mean, you know? Like there's a great quote From P.T. Anderson, Paul Thomas Anderson, one of my favorite directors. He says, when you're making a movie, you have to become a monster.
Yeah.
And it's really true. Like, you got to be nuts to get this stuff done. You can't just be, care so much about, everybody's feelings. So, like, how do we win this? How do we bring this stuff back?
Yeah, well, one thing I'd say about that is I think that I don't know if I'd say monster is right. Maybe. I think that like being a megalomaniac and being kind to people are
It's hard to do both of those things.
I think that you can do both to some extent. But yeah, I think that like a part of the problem here is just lots of middlemen. So I think the question is more like, how do you clear out middlemen? And the best way to me
well said.
is really like demonstrating. All of this is really about risk, right? It's like people don't want to take the risks. They're afraid. They might not even really know what they're afraid of, but they're just afraid. So like demonstrating the value of what you're doing, and building a crowd of building an audience around it. When you can do that, you get a lot more open doors. So I think that what Angel Studios and Chosen did the first time with The Chosen and with Sound of Freedom both were like great examples of this. They like crowdfunded the ideas. And so they didn't really need to be under a lot of microscopes. People gave them money. They said, we want to see this happen. And it happened. So like the way that my brother and I have been, thinking about this film is we went to Poland and we shot this thing for like $500,000. It's a beautiful film. It's still like, it's great, but it's like all about the acting and the set as opposed to production value and, all that stuff. So like cheap, very, very cheap movie. We're going to put $1 million into the P&A to like advertise for this thing. And that's crazy. That's like nothing for getting a movie to happen. But like, because we were so cheap about it and we raised like we kickstarted the film. We got like 160K in revenue from the Kickstarter. It just built this like crowd around the idea. And so donors and other investors who are kind of the more like, I just want to make sure that, the Jews are portrayed in a certain way. They're like, okay, but there's obviously a desire for this thing to get made.
Yeah.
Wait,
so what is this? Sorry, this is your and your brother's movie?
Yeah.
So
it's called Triumph of the Heart.
Triumph of the Heart.
Yeah,
okay,
triumphoftheheart.com. You can go and check it out. Like, it's not out yet. We're still working on it. Just got picture.
Not the Ricky Bell story. That's a different Triumph of the Heart.
Yeah, different. Yeah.
Okay, so what is this? You mentioned this about Maximilian Kolbe. So this is something happening in the Holocaust. So what is this exact? I don't know who. Oh, he's a saint. Saint yes. Maximilian. So who is Saint Maximilian Kolbe?
Yeah, he's a Polish guy who was pretty hardcore. Like, was a friar, which means he grew out a big beard and didn't have a wife and lived in community with other men. And one of his big things was he ran a newspaper and a radio station. And part of the reason why he was targeted as a political prisoner is because he had some negative things to say about Germany invading Poland. He was like very nationalistic. So he was thrown in Auschwitz really early on in the war, and gave his life to save another man. But what's also like wild about this story is that none of his art really survived. It's kind of like this moment, his is kind of performance art that lasted, but like nobody listens or reads any of his writing. So it's
yeah, dude, this looks fantastic, man. So is this done? You guys, it's done?
It's almost done, yeah. It's almost,
Okay, so did your brother direct it or you directed it?
no, I was trying to figure out how to make money so that I could have a family at the time. My
Okay.
brother wrote it. I like helped to edit the script, and he went out and did the like he directed it. So I'm really more involved as a marketer because I had to eat for the last 2 years. So
Okay. Well, still, this is very cool. This is very cool. Yeah, love the website, and this is great, man. So yeah, this is coming out. And so, what's the story with distribution? This is what always everybody always says. So is it impossible to get distribution for this kind of thing, or how does it work?
right. So that is the problem that needs to get solved, I think. Is if you're, like I said earlier, if you're trying to get investment up to, like, do $150 million war movie period piece about whatever, I don't know, like the Crusades, that is going to be an incredibly hard thing to make happen. And you're going to have a lot of people who have put in money and think that they now get to have a voice about how this movie gets made, right? So I think that cheap movies are the way that right wing art gets, like, happens, where somebody has like a primary equity stake and it's not Sony. So like the big studios are starting to see that this stuff is interesting, and they've kind of thrown some money at it, but it's not really, they're not giving enough control to actual real right wing or conservative or faith based people. So they're just trying to kind of put the aesthetic on it. But yeah, distribution is hard. I think that, like, the way that it generally works is you hire a distribution company. They take 50% of your theatrical. All they do is get you booked in theaters, and they don't do jack shit for you. You then have to raise a lot more money, put in, you pay a ton in marketing fees to just try and get the movie out there. And then, like, you only get to keep what, like, a fraction of what you end up with, and you don't get the data. So that's the other thing that I think is really interesting about the current issues with film distribution. So, like, you have no way to retarget people who are buying tickets because Fandango isn't giving you that data. And as a marketer, you're like, okay, is this working? I don't know. And then you show up on the weekend and it's a big surprise. Like, it worked or it didn't work. And I think that's a big issue right now. So, like, marketing a film is just, it's a black box industry that really needs to be disrupted.
Yeah. Well, I remember I heard Mel Gibson on Rogan, and he was saying that it was like no one would distribute Passion of the Christ, and then like one guy was like, "I'll distribute it," and it, of course, was like the biggest success ever. But it's weird. Like, wait, why do these distributors have such a lock on it? Do you know? Like, why are they so powerful?
I think a part of it is that the theater, so the theatrical release is still the gold standard. That's how everything really gets measured still. So the credentialing system for the film is, how did it do in its theatrical release? Did it break box office numbers, whatever? So even if you don't make a lot of money there, you have to succeed there to be able to succeed in, these distributors will they'll allocate more funds based on what's succeeding in the theaters, and they'll open up more theaters if it's like doing really well, or they'll shut it out of theaters as it's not doing well. So you have to win in this theatrical release thing, and the theaters are like owned by a few people. Like, there's maybe 3 groups that are all super old school, have not updated their technology. Like, they just are still living in the 1980s. And so getting them to be more technologically sophisticated is, I think, that's a problem people have to figure out. Like, it needs to get figured out. Or else we're going to have all of these layers of middlemen taking money out of the project to, like, oh, I have a relationship with these theaters, so you have to pay me 50% of your entire film so I can just get you a meeting with them.
In the theaters, yeah, it seems like a crazy level of power for a middle thing. It's this just distribution.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. Uh, yeah, it really is like it's the total conquering of the middleman, and it's like I think for a long time like the quality just like kind of went down like a plinko machine.
Yeah.
Trying to like find where somebody was making something good, and over time it just like every channel in which you could make anything good petered out. And unfortunately, the only other option is like releasing on YouTube. And it's like, that's so, when has that really worked? Like, never,
Yeah.
That's very, so, yeah.
Yeah, you've done some documentaries, right? Like, what's your experience been?
Oh, really? I remember, I made a documentary for LA Weekly, actually about downtown LA back in the day, but it was just a short documentary. I mean, I've never done like a full length documentary or anything. I mean, I know people who have done those things, but it's really hard. Yeah, I think distribution seems impossible. And yeah, who knows? I don't know. Yeah, I don't really know like how somebody would. You know who is like a one glimmer of somebody who does it right is Andrew Callahan.
Yeah.
Have you seen him? Yeah, so he's like a Gen Z, like Gonzo journalist guy who does video, and he got like a YouTube show, and he just did a documentary. Then instead of like releasing it in theaters, he did this thing where he did like a tour. So he
Right.
went city to city to city, and he like released it and like was on stage, and he like there's like a rapper in it, and the rapper comes out and like performs in the middle, so it's
Yeah.
like a show. It becomes like a
Right.
traveling show. And I thought that was really smart. And like I
Yeah.
went and saw it it was called Dear Kelly. It's about like a MAGA guy. And I went and saw it in here in LA, and it was packed. It was like, a totally sold out show in a big theater. And so they must have done pretty well on that. And it cost nothing to make. So it's like,
Right.
yeah, maybe that's the way. Just like host your own tour, if you have like
Right.
a really good idea, But
That's
that's
exactly
why,
right.
yeah,
Yeah. Like, I think that this is how all of the creative industries are this way. It's like, we're going to figure out 10 different ways to take your money as as an industry. So the artist makes all of the stuff work, but like they make no money. Publishing is that way. Music is that
yep,
way. Film is that way.
yep,
It's like,
yeah.
yeah,
People love stealing shit, man. I've noticed that they love taking yeah, they love taking ideas. They love trying to get pieces of things, and then like right owning them. And it's people are very gross. They really are very sharky types of
right.
people.
So I think that like the way that we should think about it as like right wingers is we've got to get around the industry. And so that means making cheap stuff, building an audience around it, and distributing it in a really weird, unconventional way. Like that's just how it's
Yeah,
going to have to happen.
yeah. So what are you seeing out there? What are other things? I mean, outside of the momentary Angel Studios success, what else is out there that you've seen?
Um, well, I think that yeah, maybe one that's kind of come out recently. Um, Nosferatu. Did you see that?
Yeah, I just was on a podcast talking about it. So yeah, this is Eggers. We're talking about
Yeah.
Eggers. Yeah.
So Eggers, I think, is like that's really interesting because he's doing a great job of capturing historical moments that have this very like gritty and strange, surreal. He's good at taking you back into these kind of spiritual moments. What he is not doing is like really I don't think he really understands the meaning of how did people really think at that time, and what does that mean for us? I don't think he grapples with that in a great way, but I think that it's still a demonstration of is what's possible when you're willing to do his history well. So I think the horror industry is probably like the most innovative. Like that's the place where we should be taking our inspiration, and probably we should make a lot more like horror inspired shit.
Well, I would agree that horror seems like the one. I mean, so it's funny to compare horror and comedy, right?
Yeah, right.
And because comedy is completely done. Like there hasn't been a good comedy in, you know, many years. They just cannot make good comedy anymore, which is definitely says something about like where we're at. But and whereas horror, it seems like that's the one area where like there has been, you know, still like extraordinary films. And I think that that's because, right, it's like for some reason when you have a really censorial regime, but horror exists, like you can do more stuff in horror than you can in other places. So I agree. I think horror is good. I am not an Eggers fan though, I will tell you.
Interesting.
And,
What do you think about Eggers?
he just to me seems like he's the perfect like AI got person. Like he's like I mean, I loved The Witch, right? I did love The Witch. The Witch is very good. I wasn't a fan of The Lighthouse. I really did not like The Northman, and I really did not like Nosferatu. He just to me seems like a guy who's like, he's like the pretend version of what he is. He's like, I mean, first of all, I sort of made the mistake of watching the Bram Stoker's Dracula right before watching Nosferatu. And they're so similar. It's like a copy. Like Nosferatu is a straight up copy of Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I understand. Yeah, it's the same source material, blah blah blah. But it's like very very similar. And also like he just strikes me as like what we need to find is people who are willing to say no. No, Susie, what was her name?
Yeah, no, Margaret.
No, Margaret. Like we need no Margaret people. We need no Margaret. Get the fuck out of here. You're not gonna like tell me how to declaw this. In fact, I'm gonna go the other way. If you tell me what to do, I'm gonna do the opposite. Yeah. We need like people like that. And he strikes me as a guy who is so ambitious that he's going to do, you know, in my opinion, and I say this to my friends in Hollywood, it's kind of both. If you're working within this system, at least formerly, you're kind of complicit in it. Yeah. You know, it's like if you're going to make movies out there in a system that's like saying, oh, if you don't have 3.5 minutes of a black person, your movie can't get, you know, nominated for an Oscar. Right. Like, that's fucked up, man. And like, look, I get it. I'm not going to begrudge people. You guys, some people don't care about that stuff. They just want to be successful, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, if you're going to play ball with this regime, you're kind of an asshole a little bit. And I think he definitely, he just strikes me as somebody who's not really I don't know.
That's kind of what I was trying to say is like, the soul isn't there. It's like,
the soul isn't there. Exactly. It's all aesthetics without any like soul. Yeah. That's kind of how I feel. Yeah.
Yeah. Like great art, I think really makes an argument about something. Yeah. And that's the thing that I just like, every time I've seen his films, I come away and I'm like, that was a cool vibe. I think Green Knight is probably maybe a little bit that way too.
Yeah, I felt I definitely felt that way about Green Knight. I didn't like Green Knight at all for the same reason. I was just like, what is this? This is just so lame. You know, I didn't, right. It's like aesthetics. I've said this elsewhere, and maybe you can confirm this, but aesthetics, like an aesthetic genius is allowed to go further because it's not contained with edgy ideas. It can be contained with edgy visual ideas, whereas edgy written ideas are inherently censored because it just makes people uncomfortable. You know, like, oh, we don't want to say this. It's dark. It's mean. So I think that visual artists have been allowed to go further, and I think that like a guy like Eggers is clearly a fantastic visual artist, but he doesn't really the part of him that would have had something to say has gotten kind of like shut down.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's part of why, like, I love talking around the right wing community. Like, I saw Dudley's recent post being like, yeah, and I just told told Isaac that, the blood of Christ is on his hands, and he's got to get that off his, or it'll never come off his Jewish ringing hands. And I was just like, dude, the idea that like you could say that and be friends with someone is just so shocking to most people,
Yeah.
like you just like make jokes about this stuff. That kind
Yeah.
of freedom, it's just like it doesn't exist anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, what was the joke? Sorry.
Okay, let me pull it up.
Yeah, what was it?
I gotta give me
People
a
are
second.
agreeing Green Knight was dog shit. The people are saying Villeneuve has the same problems. I like Villeneuve, whatever his name is. I hated the latest whatever Dune, but I like his other movies. Yeah, it's like, the problem with one of these systems is it just shaves off, it selects for yes men,
Right.
It selects for yes men. And sometimes that's good, but if you have too many yes men, again, you end up getting Longhouse like Angel Studios. You just have too many people who aren't enough of an asshole to say, no, I'm not going to make your movie. Oh, we need to be inclusive of this female story that's completely like that's not right wing. Anyway, sorry. What were you going to say?
Dude, I'm sorry, I can't find it. I'll keep looking. Yeah.
What was it? Who were you talking about?
Dudley knew, right? He
Oh, yeah.
said that you like called him on some sort of
Oh, yeah.
like trans. You got to like,
Yeah.
you got to draw a line, man. And then apparently he said something to you about the blood of Christ is on your hands or something.
Yeah. And look, some of that's funny, but I don't know. It's hard to. All of this stuff is like hard to parse. So, all right. Well, what's going on in marketing with our last 20 minutes? Tell me what you're seeing in the world of marketing.
Yeah, man, sweetie, I'm sorry you're coming in late here.
Sweetie.
I just got into this video. Could someone tell me how Angel Studios became Longhouse? That was an hour ago.
That's what we just talked about, sweetie.
We're gonna move on to marketing now. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think okay. So what I'm seeing in the marketing world is, man, okay. I think that this is happening broadly, but it seems like everything is becoming so hacked. Like the marketers that are winning, sort of this like grind set attitude of I'm gonna get you 10 calls booked this week with cold email. Everything has to be just like distilled down into numbers that the CFO can like sign off on. And I think that's making it very hard for like great marketing to be done in the way that it used to be. I'm trying to figure out how to deal with that, but I don't know if I've really like figured out an answer there. So I'm curious what you think there. Like,
yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's what sucks is that everything has to be memey now. Everything has to be super meme in order to work. Things have to be memes, and that's just the way it is. There's nothing you can really do about it. It definitely makes it though that it's pretty hard to do like really good inspirational work unless it's tied to some story and you just get kind of lucky. Like, who got really lucky recently was, I think it was, who did, so remember there was the Jaguar thing, of course, that everybody completely laughed at and made fun of. But then simultaneously, I think it was Porsche released a like thing about like English pride, and then Volvo released like a heartfelt family thing.
right.
And both of them looked really good.
Yeah.
but nobody paid any effing attention to those things. They only cared because of the negative Jaguar thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you can make, since nobody really pays attention during commercials anymore, everything is so bad anyway. It's very, very hard to make like good advertising that is anybody pays attention to. And then, you know, there's hilarious, great advertising like, you know, I think you're really on something with the cheap stuff. Like I think it's like doing stuff for cheap is powerful. But like seed oil, did you see what seed oil Scout did? They made like an AI country music ad.
Oh yeah.
And it was great. It was really funny and really good. But again, it's like it's memey. You know,
Yeah.
it's memey. And then you see, you know, you do see really great work all the time, digital work that's like really well done. I'm always like, wow, that's a great little like, you know, ad for a new parka. But nobody ever pays attention to it because it's just really like beautiful and sleek, but it doesn't really do anything, you know?
Yeah. Getting people to stop scrolling is like,
Yeah. You got to be
hard.
like, it's the worst. Like you got to do the worst stuff to do that, right? I mean, how do you guys do like paid digital?
We do, yeah. But we generally do that in campaign focus. So like we're building creative for campaigns. And I think that like the way that we're doing it is like, I mean, we used to do like $10,000, $20,000 promos, and now we're doing like just what can we figure out with AI and stock photos and stock video, because we know this thing is going to be either it's going to hit or it's not going to hit, and we need to have like 5 or 6 of them for it to work, which kind of sucks, honestly. Like I don't, I would rather do the high production value things, but like,
well, but it's just not worth it, right? I mean, it's just not worth it at all, you know. And as you've said, so it's like it's like you can just do these really low budget things, and it's it just works so much better.
You just put out a new ad for that newspaper. How did that do?
You know, again, we did a series of them. It wasn't just one. We're actually 2, but we're supposed to do a third, county highway, and that was really fun to do. You know, it was really, the idea was good. Everything we did was good. It was fun. We shot it on film, which was really great. And it did well. I mean, I think those ads did very well, but it's like, again, it's just good advertising work. Like it's not, it doesn't contain some really offensive thing or some really ridiculous thing, or, you know, so unfortunately that's kind of what you're bound to in today's world, is doing like something really crazy. I'm trying to think of like, what are other ads, like what are other digital ads?
I've been seeing this guy coming up on my X who just like takes trans people and like says super offensive things to in like, you know, he'll take a video and then he'll say like, dude, no, and like, I don't know, something. And then he'll start talking about his business. And
are you talking about the car guy?
Yeah, dude.
Oh, he's hilarious. I mean, he's so funny though. I mean, like he's hilarious. But I bet it's right. It's like exactly.
It's so sensational. It's like you gotta get like such radical, you know.
Yeah.
But none of my clients are going to do that shit. So like,
right, exactly. But that's a perfect. That's a great example of what we're talking about. It's like you have to be that level of this in order to break through, and that just sucks, right? Because like anything that you do in that vein is going to be really nauseating. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. What else are you seeing out there in the digital sphere?
There's still. I mean, I think there's still a lot of low-hanging fruit in just telling stories, because most advertising is just like, hey, buy this thing tomorrow, you know, and that there's just not much. People are either going to be like, yeah, I'm interested in buying a fork right now or not. But I think that like in telling stories, you're still getting to do that brand building, building the audience that's going to buy eventually. So yeah, I mean, I think the stuff that you guys are doing, your manifesto process is like, man, it's awesome.
Yeah, it is. No, I mean, I love doing it, and I think it's good for the brands. I mean, yeah, you could also look at like building an entire brand. That kind of is like the deeper work. because you're building, we call it the visual language.
Right.
And building a visual language actually is very artful because it's not just one thing. It's the whole
Right.
way the brand carries itself visually. And so I do have a lot of fun doing that because it's like, it's just like that is an expansive creative process versus just making like a little crappy meme. And then once you have your visual language, then it's like, all right, well, we got to make some digital ads. Let's make some crappy, weird little digital memes. But who knows what's effective? I mean, I still don't understand, even after all this time, really, like, have you ever seen a digital thing like work just like gangbusters? And it's like, oh, this just worked. Let's put $1 million behind it, and we're guaranteed to get $2 million back. Has that ever happened?
No, never.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, that has never happened. It's like it's people all want that to happen, but I've seen it. I know one guy who got rich that way, an old client, and he made the shittiest Canva ad you've ever seen in your life, and he just ran like 20 of them, and one just, and he had a really cheap product, and he just backed it all. He just put all his chips on that one ad that was just working. And it's like arbitrage, but it really has nothing to do with the quality of the ad.
Yeah. Or the quality of the product or any of it.
Right. Yeah.
It's
exactly.
like we've been so deracinated, right, from like reality that a lot of this stuff is possible. And that's kind of what I mean by like marketing has gotten so hacky. It's all about like hacking these systems as opposed to like creating something beautiful or good or delivering value to the person that needs it. And most of that hack stuff it doesn't work either. It's like lots of big promises that don't get fulfilled. So, I mean, every time that I talk to clients or new sales leads, it's like, but I've been burned 10 times by these guys who I paid a bunch of money to, who promised me,
dude. Oh my God.
just like,
I hear that same thing, man, so often. It's like these digital marketing companies, even like guys who are like, great recommendations. I always hear, oh, and then they screwed us, and then they screwed us, and I'm like, why does this happen? These poor clients.
It's because there's not a brand there. Like anytime that you're dealing with systems, the systems are changing, right? Like the algorithms are constantly shifting, the way that people are kind of engaging with. Also, hacks are they're only going to work for as long as it takes for people to develop an immune response against them. So like cold email, I think is a good example of this. Like it was super effective when the first people started using Apollo to scrape emails and just like mass send out cold emails. But like, dude, after, a few months of that, everybody's like, oh, another guy telling me about my college background must be that.
I noticed that you went to this university. I have to say, that shit's so funny. No, you're right, and it's like it's like everything's this hyper evolving, instant evolution of like, oh, email worked really well for 5 seconds. Now everybody realizes don't click your emails.
Yeah,
and like God, LinkedIn, dude, it's really true. None of these digital marketing things work. It's just like sometimes people strike gold, or they just spend $500,000, right? And then it's like they force it to work,
right? Right.
Yeah,
it costs a lot of money now to do that. So I think that like creating events, doing like you have to do interesting things, I think.
Yeah, well, it is like who's, of course, like there are the DTC legends like Casper mattress,
right?
Which is there's a million Casper mattresses around, and those are all just, the product is total bullshit. It's the whole thing is the brand. All the artfulness is the brand because the actual product is not jack shit.
Yeah.
So I guess you're right. It's like it's the total brand that you got to make.
Yeah. So, have you gotten to do any of those? So it seems like
no, we do. We make full brands from ground up, and it's great. I love it. That's the best part of my job is like creating literally everything. You're creating every thing. You're creating the logo, the color, the font, the how they talk, the what they say. Really like totally from scratch, and that's my favorite part of what we do for sure. Because you're more just doing the digital part, is that right?
Well, we've historically been more brand focused, and it's been in the Catholic environment, which is definitely its own kind of thing, and have only in the last 4 years really done more on the like paid advertising. But the reason is because I think that people want to, like, the way that people buy things now is like services, they want results. So if we just deliver deliverables, that doesn't get anyone results. So we're just like, all right, we've got to figure out a way to get results, or else they're just not going to pay for branding anymore.
Right.
So I think, but I guess I would just say, I think that there's still, even if you're not landing these massive viral hits, building a brand, building an audience it still works. It's just not going to be like a slam dunk. Oh, this one ad was magic, money in the money machine, and boom, like more money out. That's just not how it works. That's not.
You can do it. You just have to aim for. You got to be ready, as you're saying. You have to have the tolerance as a brand to be ready to go full troll.
Right.
Like, right, you know, you got it like the ultra right beer guy who's clearly homosexual. But he, you know, like he had to, no, look, nothing against that guy, whatever. But I'm just saying he was ready to like go all the way, you know, and it's like you got to be kind of like ready to do that. All right. Actually, speaking of, I have a meeting at 3:30, so I got to go.
All right.
But dude, thank you so much. Great to chat with you as always, man. And really great piece and great work all together. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you later.
Peace.
Bye.